It all started on a Tuesday morning, just like any other. I was supposed to pick up my daughter, Emma, after school, every Tuesday and Friday, like clockwork since the divorce. The car smelled faintly of sunscreen and chalk dust, a comforting reminder of how our afternoons used to go. Ice cream cones, walks through the park, and endless chatter about whatever book or cartoon had captured her imagination that week. When I arrived at her mom's apartment, I found the door cracked open. I called Emma's name, but there was only silence. Then I saw her, huddled behind her mother, clutching a stuffed bunny to her chest, eyes wide and afraid. I can't go today, Daddy," Emma whispered. Her voice trembled, and my stomach sank. Her mother, Vanessa, stepped forward, her expression the picture of concern. "Emma's not feeling well, sweetie. Daddy, maybe another day. You know how busy work is." Busy work? I had cleared my schedule, every Tuesday and Friday for years. Emma was my priority. But Emma's tiny face, contorted with fear, broke my heart before I even had a chance to argue. She didn't run to me like she used to. She didn't talk about the comic book she was reading or the new trick she had learned on her scooter. She just clung to Vanessa as if I were some stranger trying to take her away. That was 6 months ago. The excuses started small: stomach bug, headache, too much homework. But every sick day, I later discovered, was a lie. I would see pictures on social media, Emma smiling at a birthday party, riding a carousel, or waving from a playground. And every time I tried to confront Vanessa, she would fold her hands, look shocked, and say, "I don't know why she's saying that. Maybe you're just misunderstanding." When Emma did come over, she was different. Quiet, distant, she wouldn't meet my eyes, and barely answered questions about her day. I tried to engage her with the little routines we shared, building Lego castles, baking cookies, even just watching cartoons together. But she'd push the Lego sets away and whisper, "Mom says I'm too old for baby stuff now." My own daughter, who used to spend hours inventing stories for every minifigure, now seemed afraid of enjoying anything with me. Calls to Vanessa would go in circles. Every explanation I gave about when I'd been turned away was met with incredulity or a placating fake apology. "Maybe she's just confused," Vanessa said, smiling in that sickly way that made me feel like I was losing my mind. I started documenting everything: screenshots, call logs, even photos of myself waiting in my car outside her apartment. I reached out to Emma's school counselor, hoping to catch a glimpse of what my little girl was really thinking. And then, one night, I found it. A message on Emma's tablet that wasn't meant for me. Vanessa had been coaching her. "Tell Daddy you don't want to go. He's busy and doesn't really care. You love Mommy, right?" My chest felt like it had been ripped out. My own child, 8 years old, being fed lies about me every single day. And suddenly, it all made sense. Why she refused to come, why she clung to her mother, why the sparkle in her eyes had vanished. I had no idea how far this was going to go, or how much damage had already been done. But one thing was certain: I wasn't going to give up. The next week was worse. Emma was supposed to come over on Friday, and I had prepared everything: her favorite snacks, the board game she always insisted we play, even a small bag of art supplies for the craft project she loved. I parked in front of Vanessa's apartment 10 minutes early and waited. My phone rang. It was her. "Emma's not feeling well," Vanessa said, her voice soft, fake sympathy dripping from every word. I felt my stomach twist. My daughter was inside, fully dressed, holding her backpack. I could see her peeking from behind Vanessa's legs, and it broke me in a way nothing else could. She looked at me with that same haunted, guilty expression, like she was torn between wanting me and fearing she'd get in trouble for it. "Emma," I called gently, "do you want to come with me today?" Her small voice shook. "Mommy says maybe I should stay." I tried reasoning. "I haven't canceled on you, sweetie. We're going to build that Lego castle we talked about." She shook her head, hugging her bunny tight. "Mommy says you don't really want to see me." Everything inside me shattered. Vanessa's face was calm, almost triumphant, like she was winning some invisible battle. I wanted to scream, to shake Emma until she remembered the truth. But she was only 8. How could I protect her from this without hurting her more? I started keeping meticulous records after that. Every canceled visit, every strange comment from Emma, every call to Vanessa. I spoke to her teachers, who noticed Emma had become withdrawn during class, no longer chatting about weekends or sharing stories about her dad. The school counselor agreed to document Emma's remarks and any signs of anxiety. One night, desperation overtook me. Emma had left her tablet at my apartment after a rare visit. I charged it and, almost unwillingly, opened it. That's when I found dozens of messages from Vanessa. Instructions. Say Daddy doesn't want to see you today. Tell him you have better things to do. Remember, Mommy is the one who loves you more. Reading those words felt like ice sliding down my spine. Emma wasn't just resisting visits, she was being systematically programmed to fear and reject me. Every odd comment, every glance of guilt or fear suddenly clicked into place. This wasn't normal. This wasn't about her choosing one parent over the other. She was being manipulated. The next few visits were excruciating. Emma wouldn't speak. She stared at the floor, flinched when I reached for her hand, and whispered, "Mommy says I have to be careful with what I say." I tried to make everything normal, cookies, Lego, drawing, but she only played quietly, checking constantly to see if Vanessa had texted or called. I called my lawyer that night. "I think this is parental alienation," I said, my voice raw with frustration. "I have documentation, messages, school reports. She's coaching my daughter to reject me." The lawyer sighed, saying what I already knew. "This is exactly the kind of case that drags on. You have to stay calm, stay documented, and protect her relationship with you," he said. "It's gonna be a long fight." I didn't sleep that night. I thought about Emma, 8 years old, caught in a web of lies, and I cried on the floor of her empty bedroom. The Lego castle we were supposed to build sat in the corner, untouched. I promised myself I wouldn't give up, no matter how much this destroyed me. The next few weeks felt like walking through a minefield. Every time I arrived to pick up Emma, it was as if I were entering a foreign world. She would sit on the couch, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes wide, staring at me like I had appeared from another planet. You won't be mad at me, right?" she asked softly, glancing at Vanessa, who nodded and smiled, as if to reassure her that everything was fine. I knelt down to her level. "Emma, I'm never mad at you. I just want to spend time with you like we always do." Her lower lip trembled. "Mommy says maybe I shouldn't go today." The guilt hit me like a punch to the chest. I couldn't explain to an 8-year-old why she was being told lies about me, why her own mother had convinced her that wanting to see me was somehow wrong. Every laugh, every little game, every Lego brick we used to play with felt like a memory from another life, one slowly being erased. I began documenting everything obsessively. Phone logs, screenshots of canceled visits, notes on Emma's odd remarks. I spoke with her teachers, who confirmed she had become quiet and withdrawn, no longer talking about her weekends or sharing stories about me. The school counselor agreed to keep a written record of Emma's remarks and signs of anxiety. One evening, desperation forced me to check Emma's tablet. She had forgotten it at my apartment. That's when I found it, messages from Vanessa, coaching her. "Tell Daddy you don't want to come today. Remember, Mommy loves you more. Don't say anything that will make him happy." My hands shook. The subtle, constant manipulation clicked into place. Emma wasn't just resisting visits, she was being programmed to fear and reject me. Every odd comment, every guilty glance, every silent response was now terrifyingly clear. Visits became torture. Emma wouldn't make eye contact. She whispered, "Mommy says I have to be careful with what I say," while quietly building a Lego set, glancing at me as though she was breaking some invisible rule. I tried to make everything feel normal. Cookies, drawing, Lego, but she played quietly, constantly checking for a message or call from her mother. That night, I called my lawyer, voice raw with frustration. "I think this is parental alienation. I have screenshots, call logs, school notes. She's coaching my daughter to reject me." The lawyer's voice was calm but heavy. "You're right. This is exactly the kind of case that drags on. Keep documenting everything. Protect her relationship with you. And be patient. It's gonna be a long fight." I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of Emma's empty room, staring at the Lego pieces we had meant to build together, untouched. I promised myself over and over that I wouldn't give up, no matter how much it was breaking me inside. By the time Emma's next scheduled visit rolled around, I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. Every canceled visit, every whispered excuse, every fearful glance had piled on top of me, creating a weight I couldn't shake. I tried to remind myself that she wasn't rejecting me out of choice, she was being conditioned, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. When I finally got her that Friday, she barely looked at me. She walked past me toward the living room, dragging her backpack, whispering, "I hope I don't get in trouble." I swallowed hard and tried to keep my tone light. "Hey, want to start with Legos or coloring?" "Maybe," she mumbled, sitting at the small table and opening her sketchbook. I tried to make it feel normal, watching her small hands pick up the crayons she loved, but her eyes darted nervously every few seconds, as if waiting for permission to enjoy herself. At the suggestion of my lawyer, I reached out to Emma's pediatrician. Dr. Ramos agreed to meet with her privately and keep records of any anxiety or behavioral changes. Emma was hesitant at first, shrinking back when the doctor asked simple questions. But slowly, with gentle prompts, she admitted things she hadn't said aloud to anyone else. "Mommy says I can't like Daddy too much, or she'll be sad." Her voice was barely audible, but my chest tightened as every word sank in. Next, I met with the school counselor again. She told me Emma had started wetting the bed after months of dryness and had panic-like reactions when other kids talked about weekend plans with their parents. Every day, she tried to protect her mother from a fantasy of Daddy taking her away, and it was manifesting in fear, guilt, and anxiety. I started attending every visit with careful preparation. Lego sets, art projects, even little snacks she liked, anything to remind her of the bond we had before all this. Sometimes she would look up mid-activity, a flicker of the old Emma in her eyes, and whisper, "I miss when we used to build castles together." Then she would immediately lower her gaze, afraid she had said too much. We started a small routine, coloring together for 15 minutes, then a short story read aloud, then Lego. Tiny moments, almost imperceptible, where she smiled or laughed, but just as quickly, Vanessa's influence would creep back in. Emma would hesitate mid-game and whisper, "Mommy says I can't tell you I like this too much," and the small spark of trust would dim again. I realized this wasn't going to be fixed in weeks or months. It would be slow, painstaking, and emotionally brutal for both of us. I was documenting everything obsessively: messages, canceled visits, doctor and counselor notes, school reports. Every little piece of evidence felt like armor I could use to protect Emma and eventually fight legally for her emotional safety. Some nights, I sat in her room long after she had gone, looking at the untouched Lego sets, imagining her tiny hands building the castles we'd once created together. I promised her silently, over and over, I would find a way back to her. I would protect her from the lies, and I would show her that I had never stopped loving her, not for a single second. The court finally stepped in. Supervised visits were ordered while the judge reviewed the evidence. The first day, I sat in a sterile, fluorescent-lit room, a social worker taking meticulous notes as Emma shuffled in behind her mother. The air felt thick with tension. My daughter's eyes were wide, darting nervously between me and the supervisor. "Hi, Emma," I said softly, keeping my voice calm. "Do you want to start with the Legos?" She looked at me, then back at the supervisor, and whispered, I don't know if I should." My heart sank. The tiny, brave girl who used to tackle giant Lego castles with me had been replaced with someone so frightened of enjoying her time together. I nodded, slowly. "That's okay. We can just sit and color if you like." I handed her a crayon and watched as she hesitated, then, almost imperceptibly, began to draw. It wasn't much, just a small house and stick figures, but it was a start. Over the next few visits, we slowly built a routine. Lego building became our secret signal. Whenever she picked up a piece without glancing nervously at the supervisor, I knew she was reclaiming a little bit of her freedom to enjoy time with me. Once, she even smiled, a real, unguarded smile, when we built a tiny drawbridge together. "I missed this, Daddy," she whispered, before quickly looking down, as if afraid she had broken some rule. I also began communicating more closely with her school counselor and pediatrician. Notes about anxiety episodes, withdrawal, and regression were filed carefully. Each report added weight to our case, proof that this wasn't simple behavior, but the result of deliberate manipulation. Still, the setbacks were brutal. On some visits, she would barely speak, refusing to touch the Legos, staring at the floor as if trying to make herself invisible. Her body language screamed fear, and it cut me to pieces. Vanessa's influence was subtle but persistent, seeping into Emma's every reaction. But then, small victories emerged. One Friday, Emma picked up a Lego night and said, "Let's make a castle like we used to." My chest tightened as she handed me a piece and smiled faintly. Another day, she told the supervisor in passing, "Sometimes I like being with Daddy, even if Mommy says I shouldn't." That was the first time she had acknowledged her feelings aloud in weeks. I learned quickly that this process would be painfully slow. Each step forward was shadowed by fear, each smile threatened by guilt. But I held on to those small breakthroughs. They were proof that the bond we had once shared hadn't been completely erased, that somewhere beneath the fear and confusion, Emma still remembered that I loved her and that she loved me back. Every evening after a visit, I would sit alone in her empty room, looking at the Lego sets and coloring books we had used. I promised myself I would keep fighting, patiently, persistently, until my daughter knew she could trust me again. Months passed. Supervised visits became a little less tense, though every interaction still carried the weight of fear and caution. Emma was beginning to talk more, slowly, in whispers at first, then in short sentences. She would ask about our old routines, Legos, pancakes on Saturday mornings, the tiny library we used to visit. Each question was like a tiny crack in the wall of fear that had built up around her heart. One afternoon, as we built a Lego castle together, she stopped mid-construction, looked up at me, and said softly, "I think I like being with you, Daddy, even if Mommy says I shouldn't." Her voice was small, almost afraid, but it carried a kind of bravery that made me choke back tears. "You don't have to worry," I whispered, keeping my voice calm. "Liking me doesn't mean you love Mommy any less." Court proceedings continued in parallel, slow and frustrating. The psychologist's reports, notes from her school counselor, and my meticulous documentation formed the backbone of our case. Vanessa, of course, continued to push back, claiming over and over that Emma's resistance was genuine and not coached. But with every supervised visit report, every documented regression, and every note of her subtle manipulations, the evidence mounted. Even outside the courtroom, her tactics persisted. Emma would sometimes cry before visits, fearful of betraying her mom. She would ask, "Will Mommy be sad if I like being here?" And I had to reassure her constantly that it was okay to love both of us. Yet, despite the setbacks, there were real moments of normalcy. One Friday, she asked if we could make pancakes together, her idea. We cooked, laughed at the batter mess, and even built a tiny Lego bridge over the syrup puddle she spilled. Afterward, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "I missed this." That moment, fleeting but genuine, reminded me why I kept fighting. Progress remained fragile. Emma was still learning to separate her own feelings from the narrative she had been fed, but the cracks in the wall were widening. Her laughter began to return, small but real, and she started confiding little things about her day without fear. I knew the fight wasn't over. The court case would drag on, Vanessa would continue to manipulate and test boundaries, and Emma's healing was a long road. But I could see the difference. The flickers of trust, the glimmers of joy, the courage slowly growing in my daughter. At night, I would sit in her empty bedroom, looking at the Lego sets we were slowly rebuilding together, and whisper promises to myself and to her. I will always show up. I will always love her. I will always fight for her truth, for her memories, for her trust. And though the road ahead was long, I knew we were moving forward, one fragile, hopeful step at a time. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.